Right, I think we're just about ready. We're just about getting everybody logged on. And I think we might be ready to go. So hello and good afternoon to everybody. A warm welcome to you all and everybody that's joining us today. I'm really delighted to welcome you all to this live stream about discussion about professional development and what the Chartered College of Teaching can do to support you. I'm pleased today to be joined by my colleague Stephanie, and we'll introduce ourselves in a minute and talk a little bit about our roles and what we do. In the meantime, please post any questions that you have during the live stream, and we'll do our best to answer those for you later. And this live stream is being recorded and will be made available on my college over the next few days. So for on-demand playback, you'll find all webinar recordings and the other resources on the My College platform. So I think I'll go over to you, Stephanie, first and let you introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you, Helen. It's great to be with everybody this afternoon. So I'm Stephanie. I now work for the Chartered College as an education project specialist. So I'm developing some of that online professional learning that you'll all be able to access as members over the coming years. Up until the end of the summer term, I was a deputy head teacher and initially trained as a geography teacher in secondary education. So I've worked in a girls' grammar school and a mixed comprehensive and an independent 3 to 16 school as well, with a range of different roles during that time. And I also completed the Chartered Teacher Leader Pilot course as well in the last year. So we'll be able to talk about that today.
Fantastic. And I'm Helen. I'm the Teacher Assessment Manager here at the Chartered College of Teaching. I come from a primary teaching background, teaching everything year 2 to year 6 in a small primary school here in Oxfordshire. As with any small primary school, you wear a lot of hats. So I've done all sorts of subject leadership as well as being part of SLT and a classroom teacher as well. And I also held Chartered Teacher status. I was part of the pilot cohort back in 2018, 2019, as the programme as it was then was being developed. Felt very lucky to be able to join the Chartered College of Teaching just over a year ago in order to continue to support and develop this amazing accreditation. And so it's brilliant that we've got me and Stephanie here today to be able to talk to you from both sides, because we don't just talk the talk, we've walked the walk as well, because we've done it as well. So hopefully that we should be able to answer your questions and give you lots of information about our accreditation alongside our professional development opportunities as well. So I think a good place to start, Stephanie, options of accreditation and the different pathways that we've got. And I think it might be a good place to start with what charter status is, so that everybody understands where we are with that. So charter status is a professional accreditation. It recognises the knowledge and the skills and the behaviours of highly accomplished teachers and school leaders. So we're going to focus on both aspects of that today. And I know we have a bit of a focus on sort of mid-career teachers today. So we will be particularly looking at chartered teacher status, but actually it's really important that we look at both sides of that as well. What it does is it has a series of assessment units, and they're all based around our professional principles, and they're things that we expect our highly accomplished teachers to show in their knowledge and their practice and their behaviours as well. So we've got those two pathways to chartered status at the moment, like we've just mentioned. So the chartered teacher status that I did, which is for classroom teachers and middle leaders, the chartered teacher leadership status that Stephanie achieved as well. We are also working on a chartered teacher mentor status. Now, we're not going to tell you a lot about that today because it's still in development. But if you are mentoring either ITT, ECT, or if you are mentoring on any other sort of in-house CPD or anything like that, that might be something that you want to look at, which will be coming early next year. So to work towards charter status, our teachers need to be members of the Chartered College of Teaching, and they need to have 3 years experience as well. So this is something that builds on the early career framework. As teachers start to get a little bit more experienced, it's something that can come in. But it's not just for brand new teachers. How long had you been teaching when you started, Stephanie?
So I had been teaching about 13 or 14 years. So in order to go down the chartered teacher leadership path, There are some other sort of requirements in terms of experience and role, and all of that information is available on the website. So it's certainly something that you can pick up at any point throughout a career as well, and depending on where you are. And I think what's special about chartered status as well is it's only the Charter College that can award that, because we hold the Royal Charter, and that's what enables the college to be able to award chartered status.
Yeah, something very special. And the other thing that I really love about chartered status is that it doesn't matter, you know, what age you teach or what subject or what type of school you're in. As long as you meet our membership criteria, you're eligible to work towards chartered status. So we have teachers from teaching in EYFS and also like A-level physics, but then we've also got people teaching in mainstream, in independent schools, in hospital schools as well, but also in British schools overseas. So we have it's really flexible, so that you can choose the things that you want to work on that you need to develop, but are also really useful for you and your students and your context as well. And I think that's one of the things that makes it really good for mid-career teachers, because like yourself, I'd been teaching, I think, about 10 or 11 years when I started my journey to charter status. And that was a really good time to focus on that professional development, because it's, you know, there's a fabulous graph that I've seen about how early career teachers develop really, really quickly, and then you plateau, and depending on how hard you work and the things that you've got in place in your school, sometimes teachers do tend to sort of bump along a little bit. And actually this was a really good opportunity to get my teeth into my own professional development and take the reins of it a little bit, and really start to focus in on my practice and the impact that was having in the classroom. And that's impacts positively on the children that I was teaching at the time. Did you find that, Stephanie?
Yeah, definitely. So there's many options in terms of what you focus on through the different units that accumulate to be awarded chartered status. And I think that's what's really helpful about it, is while they're all the same standard, you're able to really specialize in what is relevant to your actual role, either that you're doing at that time or that you would like to soon be doing. And it can help guide you into that as well. So working towards chartered status is very practical. For me, it didn't feel like this added extra course which wasn't related to what I was doing in the day-to-day. I found it was extremely relatable to my daily practice, and really did impact my practice and change it, and change my priorities in that as well. So I think that flexibility in how you work towards it is really helpful.
Fabulous. If I talk us through the different units that make up charter status at the moment, that might be a good point. And then we can maybe have a chat about pulling out some of the impact that they had for us as we work through them.
Definitely.
So when Steffi and I did our pilot programs, it was a program at that point, so it took about sort of 15 months to work through in order with deadlines for when we needed to hand in assessments, partly in response to the pandemic, but also partly because teachers are, as we know, very time poor, and about prioritising that time and making things much more flexible. We now are on a unit approach. So those units are flexible. You can take them in any order, and you can you have a certain amount of time a generous amount of time to work through them. And so it's much more flexible if something, I don't know, maybe your lead goes on long-term sick and you have to step up, and actually that takes up some more of your time. And actually you've got that flexibility then to say, actually, I just need another couple of months on this, and you'll be able to pick it up. So the way that it works is we've got 4 units that teachers need to complete before they can apply for charter status. So first off, you register, and then the first unit that although I've said any order, we really do recommend that you start with our certificate in evidence-informed practice, because this is a unit which focuses on what it means to be evidence-informed, and that's really at the heart of everything we do at the Charter College of Teaching. Actually, it's a golden thread that runs through everything, because we we know that to be evidence informed means that you can draw on the best evidence from research, but also then use your own professional judgment and also that knowledge of your context as well. And that's really important to be able to make those best decisions in the classroom. So in our certificate in evidence informed practice, you'll explore edu-myths, find out why they keep sticking about. You'll find out how to access research and where to go for it, and how to critically engage with it, which is really important. And then you'll have the opportunity to engage in learning related to some key areas of educational debate. And then the assessment for that is a written educational debate task, where you look at the pros and cons of an aspect of educational debate and submit that written response. Another unit that you need to pass in order to be awarded charter status is the Professional Knowledge Examinations Award, which sounds a lot more scary than it is, I promise. It's made up of 3 exams. One of them's a multiple choice looking at evidence-informed teaching, learning, curriculum and assessment. There's also a written exam, which is based on subject knowledge, and the very long-winded objective structured teaching exercise, which we call the OSTE because that's a lot easier to say, which is where you watch a video of a real teacher's practice and then you respond to an email from them to give them some feedback about an aspect of their practice and pull out some things that they've done really well and what they could be working on next. So it sounds complicated, but actually it's got those 3 different parts. We're really looking at your professional knowledge in those. Next one to think about is the Development of Teaching Practice Award, which contains our Developing Teaching Portfolio Assessment. And this is where you use deliberate practice to hone a really specific skill in your teaching. And over a series of cycles of deliberate practice, you'll assess your practice, you will focus in on something really small and practice it and reflect on that. And part of that assessment also includes a short video presentation where you share what you found out. Then the final unit, although like I've said, any order, this does tend to come at the end, is our Certificate in Education, Research and Inquiry, which is a classroom-based practitioner inquiry. Which involves having a look at what the research says about an area and then actually having a go at something and looking at the impact of that. Includes collecting data, thinking about ethical issues as well, and then coming together with some recommendations at the end of that. So that is slightly different to the leadership pathway that Stephanie took, but they're pretty similar. They have a very similar shape, just some of those assessments are slightly different. So for example, the professional knowledge exams have a school development focus as well. The Development of Teaching Practice Award looks at CPD and reviewing the CPD provision in the school, but the assessment has a similar shape. And then the Certificate in Education, Research and Inquiry looks at school practice rather than classroom practice. So there are lots of sort of commonalities there. So is there any that you've got particularly vivid memories of there, Stephanie?
Yes, definitely the CPD unit for me. That was the one which really completely changed my priorities in my work, unexpectedly so. So I thought that I would have, impact from my work from taking the course. That's what I was hoping for. But I didn't think that I would actually completely reevaluate my priorities in my role, which after doing the work on CPD and professional learning, and how vital that is to everything else, it made me just completely view my work through a different lens in terms of what is the point of everything else I'm doing if I'm not getting the professional learning and the CPD right, in terms of developing teachers in the classroom. There's no point in me working on many of the other aspects of my job if actually I'm not prioritizing that one. So that one really stuck out for me because it just really changed my focus in the day-to-day in school and what I was directing most of my energy and time to. And yeah, I hadn't expected it. But it did really have that impact on my practice, which then fed into, the school improvement plan and things like that, and really changed direction away from professional learning just being a little side project to it actually being core for the school. So yeah, that really sticks in my mind. The exams I remember as well, because I remember it had been a long time since I had done any exams, and we were a bit nervous in the cohort about doing that, but actually the preparation materials were really clear. You had time to prepare correctly for the type of exam and for the content, and actually in doing the exams it was almost enjoyable, testing your knowledge and actually putting that into practice and into your own words in the exams. So there were a few people that were quite fearful of the exams in my cohort, but once we had done them, we actually felt that they were a really good experience. It gave us some empathy too with our students.
Absolutely. So the exams are all done online now. When I don't know how it worked for you, Stephanie, but in the original pilot cohort for chartered status, we actually did them in a room. I was up at Sheffield Hallam University, and we all sat down at our separate desks, and somebody put their hand up and asked for a pen, which it's lovely that happens every time. But now they're all done online. It's lovely that you found the practice materials good, because there are practice exams so that you can see how it works. And you can also talk to us if you have access issues or you need extra time. You can talk to us about that as well, and we can make sure that we meet your needs. So yeah, some people do worry a little bit about the exams, but they're not as scary as they sound.
No, they're really not, and they go very quickly.
Yes.
And actually you get to the end of it and you think, oh, I wish I had more time because there's more I want to say.
And the nice thing about it being flexible is you can spread that out. So we've got some people who are going, actually, I'm going to do one every long term, so that over the course of the year, I managed to get all 3 exams done, but I don't need to, you don't need to worry about having them done at any set point. Because the nice thing about all of those units are that once you're ready, you can hand in your assessment, and then at the next submission point, that's when I'll pick it up and it will go out for assessment. So if you suddenly find that you need a bit of extra time, it's there available for you. But I do notice we've got a question here about whether teachers can still achieve chartered status after completing ATS. I believe so. We do have a relationship with ATS. We have a number of ATS graduates that have been awarded charter status. So we work with ATS on that, and we also do some cross moderation. So we talk to each other and we have a look at some of the ATS portfolios and have a look at those, because a lot of those threads are common between them. So if you are working towards ATS, please talk to them about it, so that you can make sure that you get popped on the list so that you can be awarded charter status.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. And so we've had another question coming from Go. What is the value of having chartered status? I think there's so many answers that you could give to this, and it can be a very personal question. For me, I think there's 2 ways of thinking about the value of chartered status. One is the personal impact. Certainly in my experience, the impact that it had on my practice, it did make me better at my job. And that is valuable, I think, and it was valuable for me. And I think the other way of looking at value is perhaps what it says to others about your commitment to improvement and to the profession. And it certainly is a status that is increasingly well respected. I think for me, though, the priority was how it impacted my own leadership, my own practice. And in improving that, which I believe that it really did, and saw the benefits of that. So yeah, depending on what you value, there's lots of personal benefits to it. And also I think there's probably career benefits to it that you can use as well. One of the other aspects of it that I really valued, which, isn't really part of the accreditation or anything, but was liaising with other school leaders and being able to talk without any agenda other than our own improvement in our own schools. And to be able to have really open and honest conversations with other school leaders. It was a really good forum for that when I did the programme. I don't know about you, Helen.
Yeah, definitely. I think that impact on practice was the thing that had the biggest effects. And actually, it wasn't just my practice. So it was a bit like dropping a stone into a pond, because my deliberate practice was all about using resources in math lessons. I was teaching year 2 at the time, and we'd been bought, had very nicely been given some money and been bought a load of math resources, and I didn't really know what to do with them, having moved down from year 6. And like bead strings and deans and blocks and little bears that you can count, and I didn't really think I was getting the best out of them. So my deliberate practice was all about looking at what the evidence said around using resources in math lessons, and I took some active ingredients and I practiced them and I honed them down and really focused in on making sure that I was getting those things into my lessons and reflecting on that, and that had such an impact. And then we got to the project, and I kept that foot going forward. So actually that was my project as well, was like, I've developed these active ingredients, I think they work, now my project's going to see if they do. And being able to take that evidence, but then also my own evidence as well, and be able to go and say, actually, this works, this has this impact, this is what I can see from it, had an impact not just on my own teaching, but then I became maths lead, and I was able to roll that out across the school and train the rest of the staff. And then it has an even wider impact again, because that became part of our maths policy. So being able to change your own practice, but then also have that wider impact as well, was really, really powerful. And I think it comes back to that evidence-informed practice and being able to ask questions and see what the evidence says, and then being able to come up with sensible solutions. Because, we both know that sometimes teaching's like trying to nail fog to the wall, isn't it? You try one thing one day and it works, and you try something sometimes with year 2, 10 minutes later, and it doesn't work anymore. And so being able to develop those best bets was really important. I think, again, that's something that I really, really valued. But it also recognises our expertise. Mm-hmm. It will push you to develop your practice, but it also gives you time and space to reflect, and reflect really deeply as well. Because I used to thought I was quite reflective because I think about what I was doing on the drive home, but actually really digging into that professional development and the impact it was having on me, again, was transformative. And it, like you said, it's that commitment to your continual professional development, and that's what comes through. And we do have a number of graduates that have then come back to us and said, actually, it did lead to promotions, and because it did separate me from other people that were applying for roles. So I think, again, there's that part of it as well. So I can see we've got a question about somebody that's completed the certificate in evidence informed practice. Congratulations, well done. You did it last autumn term. Is there a time period? Yes, it's 3 years. So you've got plenty of time to use those credits towards chartered status. So yeah, please feel free to have a look on our website, or you can drop us an email at charteredteacher@chartered.college, and we'll give you a hand if we need to. Oh, is that a question about using credits?
Yes, it's your expertise here, Helen.
Well, it's not quite my expertise. I am going to, it's very much Sam, who's my colleague, works much more closely on this side of things. But this is our RPCL, which is Recognition of Prior Certified Learning. It's taken me a while to remember what that means. So yes, you can use credits from other learning towards chartered status, depending on what you've done. Will depend on how many credits you get and towards which units. But if you've done an MPQ, if you've been mentoring somebody on the early career framework, that will, if you've done an MA or a PhD, that also counts, and you will get credits off towards different units. So again, please contact us, let us know what you've done, and we'll be able to give you some more information on that, because it's a really good way to be able to use some of that learning that you've already done towards chartered status.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. And I think just before we run out of time today as well, is we've talked a lot about our accredited programs, which are the chartered status, which are really valuable. But there are other CPD units available online with the Charter College for anybody who is a member as well. And hopefully you've seen some of those, like the Decolonising and Diversifying the Curriculum course. There's some units on pupil mental health work coming out. There's a variety of things on our homepage, as well as all of the other resources you get, which you can use for your own CPD as well. So there's the chartered route, but there's also just for your own learning, a variety of things available online there as well.
Yeah, I think the Decolonising and Diversifying the Curriculum series is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Lots of schools are looking at their curriculum at the moment, and this is a really in-depth opportunity to really engage with it, and to be able to learn about the challenges and define what it means to actually decolonise and diversify your curriculum, and then what that looks like in practice, and then how to make some of those really key choices that foster belonging for all pupils. I think that's really important. And I think the supporting pupil mental health and wellbeing, that's working really well at the moment. So that's a series of evidence-based resources and supporting material about the RSHE curriculum. Includes some really interesting pedagogy and practice webinars. The next one's coming up in November. That's on eating disorders and body dysmorphia. But all of the webinars have a different focus, just to do around sort of pupil mental health and wellbeing. So they're again really useful. Alongside that are all of the resources that we have on My College Anyway and our research hub. So there are lots and lots of resources on the website that are available for members to be able to draw upon as part of their professional development.
Yeah, definitely. And what we try and do with those courses is not just, we're not trying to provide any here is the right answer information. It's about critically engaging with what research is available for teachers, considering your own context, your own knowledge as a teacher as well, reflecting on that, and then looking at how aspects of that can be put into practice. So we hope that a lot of those CPD units are very reflective and very useful in your day-to-day roles as well.
Yeah, I think they work nicely alongside working towards chartered status as well, but they're also standalone so that they can be taken separately as well, which works really well.
Yeah, and flexibly. So, any start time and any sort of time commitment that you're able to put towards those is really up to you as well.
Fantastic. Have we got any other questions that we need to have a little look at before we finish? I'm just looking down the list.
I don't think so at the moment, and I think we are almost out of time.
Just about out of time. I think my cup of tea's gone cold. I don't know about yours.
Too much talking, not enough drinking tea.
Too much chatting. Well, we know how much teachers love a cup of tea in the staff room with a biscuit. So yeah, I hope that you've really enjoyed our CCT and that it's been useful for you. That's given a flavour of what we offer in our accreditation and our chartered status pathways, but also the other CPD and professional development that we offer at the Chartered College of Teaching. So the live stream, it will be recorded and it will be made available on My College over the next few days. And again, for on-demand playback, you'll find all the webinar recordings and other resources on My College as well. So thank you very much, Stephanie. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, Helen. And if for those watching it back at another time, if you have any questions, do just get in touch anytime using the details on the website, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.